Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to session 39 of Talking Asperger's with Andrew. My name is Andrew Marsh, and after a successful career as a geologist in the construction industry, I was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, and everything fell into place. Made sense of an awful lot of things that happened in my life. And I now work with employers to help them better manage people like me, people who have Asperger's, and to get the best from them in the workplace. And so today's topic is managing people with Asperger's syndrome. And I think the fairest thing to say is, and I think this doesn't, most of what I'm going to cover today doesn't necessarily just have to apply to people who have Asperger's or autism. They're good things that employers should be doing anyway, but unfortunately, some people aren't doing that, and they're having difficulties with employees, and they think it's the employee's fault. But actually, you've got someone who's different, who's maybe on the spectrum, and you haven't found out how to manage them in the right way to get the best from them. And one of the comments that keeps coming back to me is people, managers tend to want to be able to manage everyone in the same way. So they issue one set of instructions. That's it, guys, people, that's my team. Off you go and do that. When actually you might have people who have dyslexia or dyspraxia, dyscalculia, autism, Asperger's, OCD, ADHD. There could be a whole range of people, or people who are just having a very stressful time and they need more clear, more specific, more accurate guidance on what you want. And they won't all respond to having that one set of information, whether that's a visual presentation, them standing up, or whether they've issued a memo or sent around an email. People on the spectrum tend to get bogged down in long, lengthy communications that are great screeds of script. We tend to like things that are broken up into smaller chunks, like bullet points, smaller chunks, maybe some visuals. And that just straight away makes them at a disadvantage. If the boss has just given out a 5-page email, go and do that, they're going to struggle with that because they won't be able to see what the salient points are. They won't be able to pick out what the main points are and what is subsidiary. And so starting off, the very first point of contact with someone that you're giving work to, you're asking them to do work for you, is setting out, and I call it the brief, but it can also be called clarity of instructions. And that is just what that says. Be very clear, very specific, very precise. Those are 3 words that I use quite often in my talks: clear, specific, and precise instructions. So that everyone on your team knows and understands what it is that it's expected of them. Because with very few exceptions, most people don't set out to fail what they're doing. Those that do, there's some kind of issue going on. There's some long-standing problem with the boss or the company, and there've been some backwards and forwards, and there's been some disciplinary actions. There's been some attitude problems from both sides. So if we put that to a side for a minute and say most people, when given some work, do not deliberately set out to fail. So if when you've given someone something to do, you then get it back and it's not what you were expecting, 2 things are wrong with, 2 things could be the issue with that. One is you haven't set out exactly what it is that you want. And so you're requiring the team member to interpret or guess what you meant. And by making an interpretation on what you've asked for, they might get the wrong interpretation. So that's one thing. And the other one is, it's just, you have to be very clear. You have to be very clear. And it might well be that the person that you've given the task to do has come up with a better solution than you anticipated. And that's where you need to be a good manager and say, wow, that's fantastic. How can we use this going forward and use this well? They've surprised me with something better than what I anticipated. And so rather than knock that person by saying you didn't do what I wanted, because either that you gave them instructions that weren't clear, or they did something better than you expected, and you don't know what to do with that. And some bosses will find that challenging their authority, and I'm going to use the word ego, because some people get very bruised egos when working with other people, and they over deliver, or they challenge what the boss has asked. And that can be very difficult if the boss has a fragile ego. And the boss needs to lighten up, needs to understand the people that he's working for. What are their strengths? What are the strengths of the team of people that you have working for you? What are their challenges and what are they not so good at? And how can you improve that so that you bring everyone up to the same sort of level? And those types of situations call for a manager, not, and I'm going to use this, I'm going to use a different word because I actually prefer to use the word leader. There's a manager and there's a leader, and a manager is someone who is going to be checking your times when you start and finish work. They're going to be checking over you. They're going to be hovering over you. They're going to be clock watching. They're going to be nitpicking. They're going to be doing all of those things that don't help the person feel relaxed and comfortable about what they're doing. A leader, on the other hand, is someone who sets out what they want in a way that works best for each team member. So that might mean that in the briefing that they gives the team member, he has to cover certain points 2 or 3 times in a different way, because Andrew likes things to be visual. So let's have some visual aids, some pictures, some diagrams, some drawings, some images, so that he can understand what's wanting. And there might be another person who works is more orientated and might be color coding. They might understand things better when there's color coding. There's the traffic light system, a green, an amber, and a red. Red being high priority, urgent, green being less priority and less urgent. So that's a different way of managing someone or giving instructions so that the person knows what you want of them and what is the most important part. So one of my key points when I work with employers is to say it's your job as the manager or the leader to find out what works best for each of your employees and give them the work in that way so that they, the employees, their team members, can work as efficiently and effectively as possible to produce their best work. And in doing that, you're encouraging, you're giving them a sense of belonging. They will feel valued. There is, and I'm sure Shirley will pick up on this as well. There is nothing better than someone at work feeling valued. That's when they will put in the extra work. That's when they will feel as though that they're appreciated, when they are feeling valued and appreciated at work. And bosses need to let people know that they are valued, rather than just getting something back from them at 4 o'clock on a Friday. Yeah, thanks guys, off you go. Let them know. Read it through, understand what you've got, understand what they've done and the value of the work that they put in over the week or so. We've just got someone else joining us, so I'll just let them in. Hello, Richard, are you there?
Yes, I am. Sorry, I'm a bit late.
That's okay, welcome. I'm covering the topic of managing people with Asperger syndrome at work today, but I am recording this session. Are you okay with me to record the session?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Because I then put the recording of the video, I put it on my YouTube channel so that people can look at it at a later date. So just very briefly, what I've been covering so far is managing people with Asperger syndrome, and we're talking about the most fundamental part of that, and that is the brief, giving instructions to team members, and how the manager, or I prefer to use the word leader, because the leader will then understand that they have to give instructions to different people in different ways so that they can understand those instructions well. So that might mean that they need to go over it 2 or 3 times differently for different people in their teams, because they might have Asperger's or autism, or they might be ADHD or dyspraxic, dyscalculic, and so on. And so the manager's job is to find the way to make their team members work effectively. It's not, in my view, there to be clock watching. It's not, in my view, there to be always hovering over them, correcting them, and browbeating them. As I've worked in some places where you didn't get a chance to succeed from some of the instructions and some of the people that you work with. So leaders nowadays need to be more flexible. They need to understand the people that they have working for them and find what works for each member of your team, and deal with that, manage that person in that way, so that the team works efficiently, they work collectively together, and you get the best work from them at the end. And so that's the first part of managing someone with Asperger's, is to understand their skills, understand their strengths, understand how they receive and understand instructions, and work with them in that way so that you can get the best from them in the work that you're doing. One of the other ways is to set out a checking in schedule. I'm not a great fan of over checking in, but I am a fan of having certain touchstone points, certain key points during the course of a project, just to check in that they are going in the right direction. And I would have the first one, if you're giving them some piece of work, say Monday morning, I would have your first check-in point, say Tuesday morning tea break. It would have given them a chance to look at what you've given them, give them a chance to formulate their own ideas and start to make progress. And so you can check in with them and say, how are you getting on? And just have a gentle, very relaxed discussion about how they're getting on, and you can see immediately whether they picked up what you've asked them to do in the right way. And if not, just guide them gently down the correct path. And then maybe have another check-in point, say Thursday afternoon or Friday morning. But always make yourself available. You know, when I worked in teams and was managing teams, I didn't have an office, it was open plan, but I did have an open door kind of policy, where if someone felt the need to want to come and talk to me about something, it was my job to pay attention to them, even though I had my own work, my own workload. Because if they felt the need to come and talk to me about it, then it's important for me to give them the time to discuss what it is they've come up with, what the problem they've got, or they may have an option of 1 or 2 or 3 different ways to approach something. Be available. Don't say, oh, what are you doing? You're interrupting me, I'm busy. That's not how to ingratiate yourself with your team. You want to, yeah, hi, how are you doing? Can I help you with something? And put aside what you're doing and give your focus and your attention to that person, so that you can help, because it's your job to help them do the work that you've given them to do that well and in the right way. So have those check-in points, be available. If you are absolutely really in the middle of something that you really can't be interrupted with, say, do you know what, I'm really busy with what I'm doing. I want to just focus on what I'm doing for another half an hour. But in half an hour's time, can we grab a cup of coffee together, and I'll come through and we can talk about what it is you wanted to talk to me about. Would that be okay? Now, I think that's an okay way of managing someone. But certainly you don't want to blow up at someone. And I have had people blow up at me, and I have had people blow up at office juniors, because the office junior has come to ask them something about what they've been working on, and they've been absolutely chewed out by the senior person with absolutely no need for that whatsoever. And you know, that was back in the 90s, and the 90s were 30 years ago. So I think we need to accept that we are in the 3rd decade of the 21st century, remind ourselves that we're in the 3rd decade of the 21st century, and we need to be more respectful and open and honest with our teams to get the best from them, and understanding that they all have different challenges, different abilities, different strengths, and it's the leader's job to manage those people to get the best from them, so that when you get back the work that has been completed, it's what you want, it's what you need to be able to pass it forward up the chain of command, pass it to your client if it goes directly to your client after you've reviewed it. And then the people who are in your team feel valued. You say to them, thank you for this. And when you've had a chance to review it, if you've got minor comments, then you can attend to those quickly. But let them know that you're happy with what they've done. It makes that person feel valued. So I'm going to stop there for a moment, and I'm going to throw the floor open to the people on the call today, and ask them what their experiences are of being managed or managing people who may or may not be on the spectrum. If anyone has any comments or suggestions.
I've found that repeating an instruction in a kind way as opposed to, I've already told you that, that works.
Yes.
And no matter how many times, because if the person is asking you or hasn't understood, it is your job to keep that going, and not until they understand, because it might be that you have to repeat it every day. I'm thinking of my niece. She needed to be given 2 instructions, no more than 2 at a time, and 2 that were similar, so that she could brush her hair and brush her teeth in the bathroom, or she could put a coat on, put her shoes on in the hall. Anything more than that, and it just over her head, and she would do none of it. So it's not actually rocket science. If you break everything down into small chunks, people can manage a small chunk, even if it's 1 instruction. Come back and tell me when you've done that, and then we'll give you another instruction. Do you understand the instruction? Repeat it back to me. That's fine, off you go. And whatever method works for the individuals. But I think I take your point about the instruction of clarity and things. It should be to everybody. And the people who don't need the additional sort of supporting on it can just ignore the extra times they've been told something. If you do it for everybody, then everybody can do it. If you isolate and highlight one particular group of people over another, whether that's the ones who are able to do things without help or the ones who can't do anything without help, you've got a break in your chain in the team. So keeping it consistent with everybody allows everybody to join in and everybody to do the task.
I agree with that completely. I do NLP. I retrained in NLP, and there's a phrase in NLP that gets used quite often, and that is, the outcome of communication is what you receive. And that means if you haven't given someone instructions into how to do it properly, and you get back something that you didn't want or you weren't expecting, it's not necessarily the person who's done the work's fault. It's that your instructions weren't clear enough, weren't precise enough, and weren't accurate enough. So that phrase, the outcome of communication is what you receive, is a very good one to remember, because the ultimate aim of a business is to service a client, or service a product, or make something, whether that's ball bearings or cars or whatever it is, that's to the right standard. And everyone in the process, I mean, if you take a car manufacturing, for example, it is a custom line, and it starts at one end with the chassis, and then they all put bits onto it, and then they put the seats and the lights and the engine and the exhaust, and everyone at their own designated part of that process has their specific point, that the specific thing that they do, so that the seat fitter will be the person who fits the seats, and then further on down the line there'll be someone who puts the doors on, and so on. So everyone knows their own tasks, and how it fits into the overall scheme of building that car in that instance. And because I've always found that if I know what the bigger picture is, I can see where my part fits into that, and I can see how my impact and the work that I've done is then taken by someone else, and then they've done the next part of the process. I always like to see the bigger picture, to see how things fitted together, because it may be that I might have come up with a different way of doing something that could help the person further down the line do their job better. And that was always something that I tried to do, was to see how I could fit into the overall picture, and if there was something that I could do to help someone further down the line, then all well and good. So I was wondering if anyone else has got any other comments they wanted to make on managing people.
I would agree. It's a process, doing any job, and I would say that not only does the individual need to know what their responsibilities are and what they're supposed to be doing, but the wider team needs to understand who is going to do what and what are the limits to your work. For example, in part of my work, which is as I work as technical manager for a company growing salads. I might have various things come up, like an investigation into a contamination of a product by bacteria, and I might need to do some investigation work. I might need to get information from other members of the team, both here in Spain and in the UK or in America. So I sometimes find that other people might not know that I'm responsible for the wider job, and so they might not reply to a question that I have, or not supply with the information that I need, mainly because they don't understand that this is part of my responsibility, and therefore part of their responsibility is to reply. So I think clarity in the beginning for all the members of the team, so all the members of the team know what they're doing and what the other members of the team are doing as well, especially in joint projects, is important. And I agree with you about feedback, about directors taking the time to read reports that you send in and give you feedback as well. I think that's really important. That makes you feel valued, makes it feel worth doing the job. Whereas so I find if I don't receive feedback, then you wonder whether was it worth it, or.
I agree. I when I was a geologist, I've said this this example before, but I think it's relevant. I had a job we were doing, and it was similar to a job that my boss, my supervisor, had done before. And he said, "Oh, just do what we did before." And me being me, I'm thinking, okay, did anyone ask them when they built the thing before whether it worked? Whether what we gave them, the design, the information we gave them, whether it worked, or did they have to change something? And if so, have we had that fed back to us so that we don't make the same mistake again? Because there's no point me delivering you the same type of report as the previous one if what we did previously didn't work, or they had to change it, or it cost them more money, or took them longer because we'd missed something. And he just looked at me and thought, and he came out with the phrase that I absolutely detest. He said, "I don't care, just do it." Where's the sense of belonging? Where's the sense of wanting to work for this man? Where's the sense of, give me a piece of work and I'll do it well? Where's the leadership? Where's all of those things? Because all that you are is just, to him, you're just someone doing something. He doesn't care whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. He just knows that in 3 weeks' time or 4 weeks' time, or whatever the program is, he's going to get something from me that he can read and go, tick, yeah, fine, sorted, done, and send it off. We're consulting engineers. We've the whole basis of being a consulting engineer is you give your professional opinion, and to just, I don't care, just do something, did not sit right with me. And I clashed with several of my senior staff members in a number of places I've been, because they wouldn't listen to me when I was talking to them about whether A, I wanted to understand something better when I was starting out, or B, when I was then using my experience to say, well, maybe we could do it better by doing this. And that closing me down and not being interested in what I had to say was so demoralizing. And what was the point of me going to work? Just to sit there and be some sort of automaton, some slave to do something, but I was getting no enjoyment from it because I knew that it wasn't valued by my bosses. And one of the things that I've learned through my time in construction and time working, doing what I do now, is that in most cases, people don't leave a job because of the business that they're working in. They leave a job because of a bad manager, and because their manager doesn't communicate with them properly and effectively and efficiently. And that's a horrible thing, to be working for someone who doesn't make you feel valued, doesn't make you want to get up on that snowy, horrible February morning when it's 2 inches of snow, you've got a shovel in your driveway to get your car out. Where's the incentive for you to go to work when you know that you're just doing something for someone who doesn't care? And it is so demoralizing. The leader's job should be to inspire their people, to inspire their teammates, to the team that they're working with, to be good, to do better, to stretch themselves, to learn and to develop. You can't do that if all that your boss is saying is, I don't care, just do it. Where's the spark? Where's the wanting to come to work there? And I really did struggle.
Collaboration, isn't it?
It
and
is.
it's their loss.
It is. Absolutely,
You don't
Shirley.
maximise the knowledge of the people who've got the wider thought processes to bring something in. Because you keep doing what you do, you keep getting what you get. So if you don't actually step outside of that to think about a different way to do things, whether it's bringing technology more up to date or processes more up to date, if you haven't got someone who can actually look at the processes and actually challenge them in the right way, challenge them, and being vague about things as well, being vague about timeframes is another one. If you just say we need it next week, you need to actually say I need it by Friday at 4 or Wednesday at 3 or whatever it is. If you make it vague, people don't know, and then they'll just work on it at some point. And the urgency and the prioritization needs to be pulled in.
Absolutely.
But it definitely is using people. If you recognise that people have got this wider scope to take things in, particularly if the people are fast learners, and give them a challenge that's quite far-reaching, or even if it's a complex challenge, a lot of people will come back with the perfect answer, and because they've been given the time and the respect, I guess, as well, to actually think about it and work it out.
And if you
confidence and comfortable coming back.
Yeah, and if you broaden that out to inclusion, diversity, and equity into the broader sense, if you're employing people who are from different cultures, different races, from different countries, their ethnicity is different, their sexual orientation. If you're employing people who embrace all of the variables of society and the variables of people that we have in our culture these days, it's more likely that you're going to have someone working in your team that knows the answer to the problem, because they may have encountered it before, because they've come from a different background, they've come from a different situation, they may have come up with the same problem before and thought, oh yeah, when I worked in Poland, we fixed that just like this, or whatever the situation is. So being more diverse in who you employ, from people from all sorts of varying backgrounds and as I said, ethnicities, cultures, and so on, you are going to be having a much greater pool of resources, abilities to call upon to do the task at hand, and that will produce better work. As Shirley just said, they might come up with something that they might come up and fix a long-standing problem that you've had with a process, and someone in your team knows how to fix that because they fixed it before. But if you're always employing the same type of person doing the same type of thing, you're going to get the same type of result, and it's not going to be broad, it's not going to be full encompassing. So these are really important things that make a difference to the employee, but it makes a difference to the business. The business is going to thrive if their employees are stretched and are challenged and succeed. Then they're going to feel valued, as I said earlier, and they're going to want to come to work, and they're going to be then given them more responsibility. They're going to be given bigger and greater challenges because they've shown that they can do it. And when your teams all work together in those ways and work and understand each other's strengths and weaknesses, they can help the weaknesses. They can help develop someone's struggling areas. I mean, I don't know about you, but when computers, I mean, I had half a geological career without even knowing what a computer was. So when I had to start to work to write reports and format documents and open Word documents and do things like that and Excel spreadsheets, I didn't know how to do that. But I found someone who did know how to do it. And I said, would you mind if I sat next to you for an hour so that you can show me how to do this? And they went, no problem at all. That's how I learned, by being shown. Now, other people might learn in different ways, but we all learn skills differently, but they all become part of what we can do and how we can contribute. So being able to sit next to someone who can show you how to do it works for me. It brought up my skill base. It made I write novels. I write novels as well, more than a hobby. I thoroughly enjoy writing novels. So I've got quite good at Word and formatting and all sorts of things like that. But it just goes to show you that if you encourage someone who is enthusiastic, they will broaden their skill sets, broaden their horizon, make them more employable, make them more usable. You can use them in different ways. You can value their skills and challenge them again with something new, as Shirley said. And these things are important. They make you want to come to work in the morning because, yeah, I'm being challenged. It's good. And that's really, really important. We're getting towards the end of our time today, but I was wondering if anyone had any final comments or observations they wanted to make, because I'm going to be covering the topic of managing people with Asperger's later in next week's episode, because I think it's something I need to cover quite a lot of things, and I think I can't really cover it all in one sitting. So has anyone got anything else they wanted to add? In which case, if you are someone who's watching this on replay and you would like to know how to get in contact with me, you can get me on my website, which is aspergersmatters.com, or you can email me at andrew@aspergersmatters.com, and I would welcome the opportunity to have a chat with you about how I can help you manage people with Asperger's syndrome, or look at diversity and inclusion in the wider context with you. So thank you all for coming and for joining me today. It's been really interesting hearing your views and your thoughts, and thanks for contributing. And I'm going to turn the recording off just now.